A lot of different people on. We've worked really hard to get folks back on tonight. My co-host is going to be with me, Dominic, who some of you met before. Bonnie Sadowski will be back with me co-hosting. Tonight I have a special guest, which you see the sign right behind me. But we're going to have a lot of people from the State House with us over the season. We hope to have Don Williams on, President of the Senate. He'll be talking about his new book. We'll be having, Andy Maynard's due back to see us. Tim Bowles will be back with us. Rob Kane is we're gonna go across the aisle to the Republican side. He's going to be with us this season. So I hope you tune in, and I hope we have a good season for you. And right off, I mean, you know, me and Wild Bill have gone around a few times, and tonight we want to see, he's right here with me. God bless you, Bill.
Pleasure.
And good to see you. And why are you running? Why are you so crazy? I love you as the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee. You know that, even though we fight and struggle. But really, why are you taking on the big job?
Well, and you say the big job. I look at this as, first and foremost, you know, we've had Senator Stillman that served us for the last decade and done a great job. And she opted not to seek re-election, after 22 years, both in the House and then the last decade in the Senate. So there became a void. And the void at that point, you know, as I checked with local legislators, no one was looking to run at that point. So I threw my hat in the ring. And really the reason I want to run is I've always used politics in my life as an elected capacity as community outreach. So obviously all the things I've done in the community, now on the state level in the state Senate, looking to make the state of Connecticut, of course, our region, that much stronger, that much better. And, we'll just continue to work it. But I really want, there's some things that have frustrated me throughout the process. I've been out of elected office for the last 17 years, but served as the mayor of New London, on the city council, on the Board of Education, but haven't really left it. I'm not behind the scenes, but I'm working closely, as you mentioned, the Democratic Town Chair. So really, with the governor running for re-election, we know it's going to be a close race. I wanted to have a very strong candidate. I feel I'm a very good and competent candidate, and also a great campaigner. So obviously, looking to carry in the 20th senatorial.
Well, I care about you. What I love is our party's a big tent party, and you've worked really hard into getting a lot of diversity in our party locally, and I know you'll bring that to the state level. You got a tough candidate, don't you think? Again, people love Betsy Ritter.
I think Representative Ritter, she's a formidable candidate. I think she's been out there working just like both of us have. And that's the thing. It's forcing us, and I'll use the term, probably if I was the nominee or her, would we be out there knocking the doors and going out, but getting out and getting the Democratic message out to the people in the 20th senatorial district. And the district is pretty widespread. It starts, and I'm going to go to the northmost portion, which is fairly new to the district in the last few years, or 4 years, is Bosra, Salem, a portion of Montville, all of New London, all of Waterford, East Lyme, Old Lyme, and then a portion of Old Saybrook, because you carve out the I-95, 395, right. Route 2. It's almost like you can take those and then up a little bit up Route 9. So it's a 8-town district. It's geographically, it's pretty stretched out, but with the interstates, we have good ways to get there, but also crossing the back roads of the country roads as well.
And you're talking about a diverse population, too.
Very diverse.
Very diverse, not as struggling as I could say of our New London population. Some of the population you're talking about is what's a nice way to say, more economically fluent than our situation.
Well, and that's a very good point and a valid one. But you look at the state as a whole. Yeah. You have the cities, the inner cities, you have the suburbs, and I think one thing that we need to do is we need to work together, and we have, I think, under the guidance of Senator Stillman, I think, and you mentioned Senator Maynard and Senator Austin up in the Norwich area. I think the delegation as a whole has worked for the betterment of Connecticut, and that's what I look to continue to do.
Good. Very good. And here you go. Dominic Cotton. For my viewers, I want them to meet. You're going to be my co-host a lot this year, and we work heavy on legislation.
I'm glad to be here. We bring a slightly different angle to things. Certainly, getting involved with some of the Republicans and finding common ground with people, and really looking for the better good of the whole of Connecticut and finding ways for people to work together. I know, obviously, I don't know you as well because I'm not from around this area. I'm more from the other side of the state. But working with a lot of the different senators, I see some people have skill sets that fit certain committees. And I know you have an economics background, and obviously working up at Mohegan Sun, you have a large diverse community integration background. I guess what committees, if you had the opportunity to be able to look to serve on, would best fit what your skill set
Well,
is?
first of all, let me thank you for those kind remarks, and just two things is, where you come from in Milford, you have a great senator, Senator Schlossberg. She's
Good friend of ours.
done a great job, Gail Schlossberg.
Yep.
But just to set the record straight, and I work for the Mashantuckets on Foxwoods. But we
Oh,
work.
sorry.
But no, you don't ever have to be sorry. That's said many times. I'll tell someone I work for Mashantucket. Oh, I was up the Suns game the other night. So it happens often. But I think which is good that we have two tribal nations, obviously two casinos in the state of Connecticut. So I think as a whole, the thing that you just brought up is and I'm a strong believer, and I've always governed this way in the state of Connecticut. As much people don't want to believe it, it's a two-party system. In New London, we can say it's a two-party. There's a Republican and a Democrat, but the Democrats are very strong. They outnumber the Republicans. But there's also the unaffiliated that are in the state of Connecticut. But once elected to any governing body, and this is a problem we have in D.C., it's not us versus them. It should be all we.
Yep.
We the people. And what we've been seeing in D.C., a little bit up in Hartford, is the Democrats or the Republicans. So what I've shared, once elected, you're there to represent the district and what's best for the district, not what's best for this party or that party.
Right away, talking about integrating people, we got a call. Good evening, you're on Street Talk with Bill and Dominic. Hello? Oop.
I've got a question for you.
Very good.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay. What do you propose to do about the theft,
Hello? What
the
theft?
Amistad from Connecticut?
Yes, that was-
Probably the first thing, you need to turn your TV down just a little bit, so I know you're getting the feedback because we're a
Right.
little bit delayed. But I think to commandeer, as some people have said,
Right.
the homicide. Now, I'm going to touch base on something,
I was gonna
if you
ask
don't
you
mind,
about
is,
that.
and I applaud Governor Malloy. Told him either get that boat to Sailfest, or you're not going to get your $375,000. And
Right.
think about that. That's been a decade they've been getting that money.
Right.
That's close to $4 million.
Right.
And if you look, that line item is Department of Economic and Community Development.
Right.
And I cannot believe, and I applaud Representative Urban, but others have not gone on the thing of recalling the money.
Yeah, get the
and,
money back.
I really think the issue needs to be, it's in New Haven Harbor right now. I don't know the logistics of who owns it. I don't think, I'm sure they do understand who owns it, but we, the people, don't understand who owns it. So I think the governor made a bold and a right decision today as far as telling them to get their butt and their boat down here to New London for Sailfest, which you committed to, and then not moving it back and forth throughout the Caribbean.
I'm glad you asked that question because I was going to hammer him with that question too, and I hope it gets here. I really upset about that. And millions of dollars was spent on that to redo it, to rebuild it, and everything. A 501c3 is supposed to have control of it, so that sounds to me like a community boat with all tax buyers. But I don't know. Again, total
I don't
background.
know, as far as following their income tax, and again, going back to Representative Urban, is, I don't know if they're losing their 501c status. You have to report in a certain amount of time, and it sounds like they haven't done their tax returns in several years.
Right. Is that good for you, caller? Yeah, I guess. No, I guess we're good.
I think you lost them now.
Back to the economics of what that we were talking about and the diversity of. At the
Well,
state
I just
level.
want, and I apologize, and I know you went to the phone, I didn't really finish. The
Sure, no,
question
no.
is, no, you asked which committee, and it's been the, prior to working for the Mashantuckets and being in when I was in politics in New London, first on the Board of Education, so I have some background in the education, obviously education cost sharing, the special ed costs, and then serving on the council and also 2 terms as mayor. I worked full-time at Northeast Utilities. It was then owned by, they owned Millstone Generating Station and Connecticut Yankee, and I worked in the nuke. So I have some background in familiar with the regulatory issues with the Energy Committee. I don't think I would be, I guess what it's going to be, once elected, out of 36 senators, I'll be the low-hanging fruit. You're going to get this
You're
committee
gonna
or
get
that
that
committee.
wherever
But
they
would
put
I
that.
like to have energy or see something
You'll have
of that
to talk
nature?
to my good friend Bob Duff.
Right, and
Yeah, right.
I've spoken to Senator Duff, so I mean, it's not like they're going to sit there. So, once he becomes the majority leader, and it sounds like he might have the votes that, I think I don't know if I'm going to have much of a choice. I know they try to make the match, but I think it's going to be what's left.
Yeah, no, it's really
You
interesting.
serve at the will of the president.
Well,
so to
there's
speak.
a lot
Yes.
of issues, and it's really good. I mean, a lot of people know you in New London, but I don't think they know how diverse you are with the issues, how knowledgeable you are with the issues. I mean, right away we were talking about just a minute ago with we deal with the ABI, the acquired brain injury stuff. Last year was a big tough year for us up there. Everybody tried to do the best thing. We had legal things going on. In your background, you've worked with special ed, all.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny, I graduated, and I have no qualms saying I'm 55 years old, almost 56, graduated high school in 76, stayed local here in New London my entire life, but been around, obviously, people with some sort of disability, first and foremost with Special Olympics, as you mentioned. I started that a little bit after high school, been very involved with that over the years, and then my son, who's now 20, almost 21, was born normal, and then about 6 months started to have seizures, and he has a brain injury. It's not traumatic, but he has a disability, and he's got us. He's doing great. He's happy. He doesn't walk, talk, communicate, but he does have a special needs. And I think what needs to happen is, and what's frustrated me, and again, you asked, going back to your original question, why you want to get involved, and I'll go during the role in administration. I mean, the first to cut was then DMR, it's DMH, but they okay, let's cut that right there, because they're not real vocal, they're not a big voting, I mean, it was all about numbers and the cutbacks that they've happened there. The closures, I drive by it with my job, with the Mashantuckets, I travel throughout, and heading up public affairs, public relations, and the community relations, so I deal a lot with the local communities, but driving by, either Norwich State Hospital or, of course, Seaside here in Waterford. I mean, that was just a cost savings method for the state of Connecticut, with really no recourse. They could say they had a plan, but I think placing those clients, has not been a success. I mean, people are on waiting lists for beds, for rooms, for housing, and was so frustrated as a parent. And I applaud my former wife that's been raised, been around, but obviously my son spends a lot of time with her, and if he were placed, they could tell us, okay, we have a bed for you. It's up in Danbury.
Yeah.
That's she's been with the child, my son, for 20 years almost. He goes to school during it, but that, and just the way it works. And if you don't accept, and then you go back into the system,
You go back on the list at the bottom of the list, right?
So I think those are some things right there from that we live every day as a family. Those are some things that need to be looked at, need to be fixed. And it always seems that we always seem to cut the ones that are not real vocal or the big voting blocks are the first to go.
I think people have become more vocal over these issues, and I think there's a large coalition actually of lawmakers that have become involved with, especially the developmentally disabled population, and realizing how frustrating it is to families that they aren't receiving the kind of supports. But also on the other end, I mean, we're going to be faced with a deficit again, and these are going to be some of the major issues that people are going to be faced with coming back into the next session over what gets cut. I mean, I've watched Governor Malloy, talking with different populations and saying, we're done cutting, but so much has been taken away over the years. I know one of the things that we were very thankful of was the move towards more community-based services,
right.
and getting people in their homes, which is,
Yeah.
from my point of view, is obviously is the best way to handle a lot of this. And I certainly applaud the governor for adding space to the Katie Beckett waiver for the populations, and obviously working with us over the brain injury population and trying to get more community-based services. And I think that's
Well,
really the way
that's
to go.
the thing that I was talking about, Dominic. Is I mean, you're fighting, and I applaud you guys. I know you were up at the Capitol. I couldn't make it up that day when you had the testimony and everything that went on most of the day. But it shouldn't be that you have to continue to fight the fight. It's been almost 17 years since they closed those facilities, and they're thinking they're doing you a favor. And when I say you, your organization, this should have been done when they closed that. If it was costing them probably at that time, probably a little, let's say $30,000 per client that lived at any of these facilities here. I got to tell you, in the in-home, and you're right, being placed in someone's home is a lot better than being institutionalized by far. But the fees that drop is they're probably spending about $3,000 to $5,000 per client. It might have been 30,000. So where that money went, first and foremost, unfortunately, was the cost savings and closure and those things. And here we are still sitting there with
We're
them.
still sitting here with the problems and everything else
Yes.
because of the deinstitutionalization. They've done that in other states. We're not alone in that. And hopefully this is the fight. I mean, this is the kind of thing why I want you up there, who you know personally what the struggle is. You know from a personal standpoint what the need is and stuff like that. For us, that's a key issue. The other issue, of course, key with me is the justice with the juvenile justice stuff. I mean, here you come out of New London, you see what we have the problems with our juveniles in the juvenile justice program. Where do you think you're going to be landing on that?
Well, I think it's something, I don't want to say it has to be studied, but obviously, people like you that have dealt with it for years and I'll say it, is anyone, I don't care how smart of a legislator you think you are or individual you think you are, there's always a lot more room for education. So for something like that I'm familiar with, I'm not well versed at it, but familiar, I turn to people like you and other people that educate us on that. But there is an issue. I mean, it's just an issue that it's outlying and it needs to be dealt with. And then there's some dollars when I say dealt with it. It's not just, okay, well, let's go deal with the juvenile, but there's also some programs in place, interventions that need to be in place, training that needs to be in place, and give them something to do.
Yeah. Cost, because you deal with economics, there's huge cost savings that we can have done with the state on these programs. And I mean, that's really where I look at stuff. Where is all the money going? The money that we're supposed to be doing with things that are not really getting to the people who need it.
Well, and again, I think all, 3.5 million residents of the state of Connecticut, there is some need there in many different ways. But the problem that I have is I've watched a lot of money that has gone to Hartford, okay? And I'll speak specifically from who I work for, the two tribal nations. I was sitting there as the mayor in 1993 with then Governor Weicker. We're up there fighting about drive-by shootings, gun control in the cities and how we're going to deal with this stuff. And, the COPS program was just coming in place from the federal levels, trickling through the states down to the local municipalities. And Governor Weicker turned to us, the mayors from New Haven, Hartford, myself, and said, oh, by the way, I cut a deal yesterday with the Pequods. Well, the first full year, $118 million went in and this is before Mohegan Sun opened up the slot revenue, as we know, $118 million. At an all-time high, it got up almost to $500 million. That first year, $85 million went to the 169 towns. How they divvied it out was through the pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, out of $118 million. Well, that went to almost $500 million, $472 million. They still stayed at $85 million. So where did that money go up there in Hartford instead of where it was meant to come back to the 169 towns? There was a formula. Now you take it, now that the slots have dwindled, they've cut back, under 400,000 to 300,000. Now all of a sudden they're taking this thing and moving this barometer a lot lower too. So they're taking from the cities. So I think there needs to be something that needs to be looked at. And the money that goes to Hartford, here in southeastern Connecticut, we have a lot of money that is generated because of tourism dollars, okay? Not just between the two casinos, but it's a billion-dollar industry. Most of it comes from eastern Connecticut. That money goes to Hartford, but it doesn't come back to us. I know over the years they've talked about the bed tax. Why are the taxes that we pay on our hotels in Mystic, Stonington, New London, Old Saybrook, Old Lyme, why does that go up there to Hartford? And then they delve it out between the 169 towns where it's generated. It puts the burden on the roads down here. And now you look at it, we have a lot of campgrounds in southeastern Connecticut as a whole. Salem, Basra, they have campgrounds, and the same thing, that form of tax goes to Hartford, but it doesn't necessarily trickle down to us.
Yeah, and it's our infrastructure that needs to be restored due to the traffic and all the things that
Which
go on.
is a big issue
Which
on
is
my
a
side
huge-
of the state.
Which is a huge
You know,
issue.
especially
Right.
taking money that's dedicated from the transportation fund and putting it into the general fund. You know, there's some specific projects, some that I'm glad to see are actually, you know, moving along, and including the bridges in New Haven and Stratford area. But certainly some of the train infrastructure down in my end of the state is, I mean, as the bridges going on around here, the drawbridges.
Right.
I mean, this is a good opportunity for transportation and dealing with some of the issues going throughout the state. But taking the money that's dedicated for these things just causes more problems.
The problem I see with government as a whole, and I'll say even when we're in the London City Council, is most of the time we're reactive. We're not proactive. I mean,
proactive,
we knew
right.
in the early 80s, Mianus River Bridge, bridges crumbled. Boom, the state got very reactive, put a ton of money in, did a lot of the infrastructure, did some road work, but didn't deal with all the bridges. So now we get another. What was the latest report? And I know you talked about the drawbridge that held up, that stopped the trains.
The walk bridge
Right,
down in Norwalk.
Down in Norwalk, getting the trains in, and the commuters in and out of into the city where a lot of them go. But the other thing there with the train, so I mean putting the stuff in infrastructure, but there's also you have to have fairness. I mean, what it costs to run, let's not talk Amtrak, that's federal, but the subsidy that's put into those programs or those trains that go down there and what they pay for a nominal fee to go down into New York City. I know it's great, we're taking them off the roads, but us here in southeastern Connecticut have to get in our car, and you know what gas is costing a gallon now, and have to drive from point A to point B and drive back, where they go down to the local commuter lot at the local station and going down there. I think we need to look at that. I mean, it's fairness is fair.
It's fair, exactly
and
right.
it needs to be
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So there's a lot of things. So going back to another question you were asking about the budget. We are facing, as we project, and going in 2016, another huge deficit. First and foremost, there's a lot of bonding projects that go on throughout the state, including schools. I'm not saying the schools don't need to be fixed, need to be done over, need to be built as new, whatever terminology they want to use. But we also have to look at our borrowing. We can't, if we are in this phase right now, we have to balance the borrowing. I don't know exactly how many projects are bonded out there, how many are really necessary versus, needed or not needed. I mean, they're all going to have a need. They all have a need.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then they need to prioritize, because there's millions and millions and millions of dollars that are set to be bonded and set to be worked on.
The thing that bothers me more than one of the whole things, I mean, obviously we're here. I live in New London. I look at New London. I have my kids were talking about maybe they were going to move, to New London, because we do a home healthcare business and stuff like that. Infrastructure. I mean, our infrastructure, our roads, all the things that should have been taken care of are in. I look at them and I think they're in a desperate strait. Versus, we can fix this, fix that. We're looking at the Coast Guard Academy, the Coast Guard Museum coming, okay, which means huge amount of traffic and stuff like that. I mean.
Well, the infrastructure, I want to applaud it, and I know they're just repaving and resurfacing, and I know they've been doing it down your way as well. DOT is doing a great job. I know they have some subs that are coming in, but DOT as a whole is doing, putting that plan, it's obviously the engineers and everyone putting that in play. And I think that I have to give it to them. The traffic flow has been pretty good. They do it at the evenings. They have the timing down. Not too often have we been frustrated that, geez, they could have done this at 2 a.m. or whatever. But I think they've done DOT, and I know they've subcontracted out. But that goes back to another thing as far as subcontract. And this has been asked of me a lot this last week and a half. Is another frustrating thing to me is, especially in southeastern Connecticut, you saw road work that was being done, and it's a subcontractor. And it's a contractor out of Rhode Island.
Out of
Massachusetts.
Right,
And on top of it, they're hiring from their locals. They're not hiring from our locals here in New London or Norwich or
That's right.
based out of Hartford, wherever the local is. It's hiring out of state people to come and work. And they're union brothers and sisters. I don't have a problem with that. But I don't know, and again, I'm trying to vet this through, trying to get some answers. I'll give Senator Maynard a call on this. But is there some way we can have in the language that first and foremost, right of first refusal almost? If you can't fill it through the local union halls, then you would go there.
Then you go outside.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know in New London years ago, what we did do is, and it wasn't dealing with work, but it was when the bidding process, if there was a City of New London business that bid within 15%, we actually allowed them to come back. If say it was you were charging $1 for that cup of coffee and you were at $1.05, but they were at 15%, they can come back and say, yeah, I'll pay $1. So we did that. It wasn't ruled illegal. So I think, we as a state, and I'm not saying they're not doing it, but I think we really need to look at making sure the people in the state of Connecticut are working.
Ah, well, that's work, that's jobs, that's key stuff that obviously that we need to get to. How do you see? That's one way. That's an excellent way of talking about how we help develop and build jobs by doing stuff like that. Other avenues have you thought about for job development? I mean,
Well, I and no disrespect to the governor and everything, Jackson Labs is great that we're going to bring a business of that magnitude, but there's a lot of money that's being put into that. I'm a strong believer in small business. Small business is what makes the state of Connecticut go around, and not too often do we have something in place, stopgate for small business. If we had a fire or a flood, other than the goodness of your neighbors, I was just looking right now at a barn in North Stonington. It was on one of the local stations before I came here that collapsed in the winter. Again, it's the nickels and dimes that are coming together to help this organization out. And it's not a small business, but it's not for profit. But there should be a stopgate in there for small business if they get flooded, fire, that they have insurance, but their lost wages are immediate.
Right.
Their income to them is immediate lost.
Yeah.
So are there programs in place that they don't have to go through the bureaucracy to deal with? It's like, post Sandy and the last two storms, it took a while. FEMA came, FEMA sat there, and you watch it happen all the way to the Misquamicut beaches, all the way down your way where the shorelines were devastated. Yeah. And have to wait in 3, 4, 6 months, over a year for some of those dollars to come in is just unacceptable.
Yeah, and if you're a small business, you're out of business.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
I guess if you were looking at some of what the governor did, I know with the first 5, what sort of industries would you be? I mean, I know we're talking about small businesses and other things because those are a big economic driver, especially locally. What sort of businesses would be good to try to pull into certainly this area and the state as an overall?
Well, with us, Dominic, with the I-95 corridor, as much as we talk about the roadways, we do have a great corridor, 395, I-95, access. You think about it, and this was almost from my inaugural addresses, we're 2 hours to New York, 2 hours to Boston, an hour to Hartford, hour to Providence, hour to New Haven. I really think, and I applaud Senator, I think he's finishing up his 4th year, 2nd term, Senator Cassano, manufacturing jobs. We need to bring the manufacturing base back to Connecticut. As the old days in the 40s and 50s, it was the factory jobs, it was this, but it was jobs. And we need to continue to work. I know there's some incentives that we have out there to try to attract businesses, but I'm a strong believer, and I'm going to come back to the Department of Economic and Community Development. I really feel those individuals should be salespeople. Not that, let me help you now, you want to look to relocate or locate your business here to Connecticut, you're looking, and not taking that I can give you money for move from North Stonington to New London or New London to Old Saybrook, or I'm not looking to have us jump around using state money to move around there. If we're about to lose a business to some other state, yes. But, the businesses are pretty good, pretty savvy at, playing Rhode Island, Massachusetts. So I really feel our individuals should almost be salespeople going out there, reading the papers, seeing that such and such in Massachusetts is not happy with something, and see how we can relocate them down here.
Well, I certainly know other states
do
that to us
for an awful lot.
all the time.
They're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah,